You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. First and foremost, if we start at the most important position, I know there's a question about what role Garrett Nussmeier is going to play in this team. I actually did an interview today on the Chuck Oliver Show, and Chuck asked me that question. What is Nussmeier's role going to be? It is very clear his role is backup quarterback. It is Jaden Daniels' team. Jaden has taken all of the first-team reps. There has been no rotating at quarterback with the first team. It's Jaden's team. If Jaden Daniels is healthy, he is going to be the starting quarterback for this team. I don't think that's a great surprise, but it bears mentioning because I think, especially given in the bowl game when Jaden had 2 series and Garrett had 1, we saw that rotation. There was a thought that maybe that might continue. So far, anyway, it has not continued. This has been Jaden's team. When we watch practice today and we're watching the quarterback or the cornerback wide receiver one-on-ones, the quarterbacks are rotating to throw into the receivers, and it was Jaden, Garrett, and then Ricky Collins was third. And there were some really impressive throws by both quarterbacks. And I think aside from that, the other biggest takeaway so far is that the wide receivers have really dominated the cornerbacks and the defensive backs. Not just even the wide receivers, all of the pass catchers. We've seen one-on-one drills where it's a pass catcher against a defensive back. We've seen 7-on-7s when there's no pass rush. And today we got to watch 11-on-11. And it does not matter. It has not mattered yet what format the offense has dominated fall camp so far. That drill I talked about a bit ago where we got to watch the receivers against the defensive backs, I charted 22 matchups. The defense won 2 of them. 2 of the 22. And it was Toviano, who had a really nice play against Mason Taylor, and then Deuce Chestnut had a pass breakup against Landon Ibieta. Now, there were a couple others where, let's see, 84, Mac Markway had a drop. Chris Hilton had a drop, although Chris Hilton maybe had the catch of the day today on a sideline route where he elevated and made it was during the 11-on-11 period. He was on the lined up wide to the left, and Jaden threw a ball down the left sideline, and it was a beautiful catch. I think they have referees there, so they did rule him out of bounds, but just coming down with the ball in double coverage was incredible. Chris Hilton, by the way, maybe is one of the biggest takeaways so far offensively. He has physically transformed his body. He's not just a skinny sprinter anymore. Like, you can tell that is a dude in year 3 who has built his body into a full-on man, and he looks awesome. Brian Thomas was not at practice today, no explanation given. And then after Malik and Kyron Lacey got thrown out, it was basically Chris Hilton and then Jaylen Brown and trying to think who was the other receiver that took the lion's share. Help me again. The freshman from Texas, I mentioned him earlier.
Kyle Parker. And Jaylen Brown.
Brown and Parker. It was those 3 that took the lion's share of the reps with the ones after that. So Aaron Anderson as well is kind of playing more of that slot receiver role, but he's been fun to watch. And with respect to the fight that happened today, I think a big part of that is rooted in frustration from the defense because they're getting it handed to them. And it's not just the receivers against the defensive backs. The offensive line might be the most encouraging part of this team. Here's what I mean. A year ago, LSU could, when we would go watch the 11-on-11, there were times the offensive line could barely get a snap off. Mason Smith was so disruptive, and it wasn't just Mason Smith. It was Jaquelin Roy, you had B.J. Ojolari, you had Ali Gay. I mean, they were awesome. The defensive front was awesome last year. And the offensive line had a freshman left tackle. You were rotating guys at center. Tremont Shorts was getting reps with the ones at guard. I mean, you remember how that whole rotation was going. And the offensive line struggled so mightily. Now, the offensive line has had the upper hand against the defensive front. And I'm here to tell you, Mason Smith is a great player. Mekhi Wingo was an All-American last year. You've brought in depth with guys like Jordan Jefferson, who is getting reps sometimes with the twos right now. He's wearing number 99 to transfer in from West Virginia. Like, they got dudes and talented, experienced bodies. The offensive line is having the upper hand so far, which should be encouraging because it's not so often when one position group does well, when you're going good on good, you go, okay, well, like, does that mean this unit is good, the offense is good, or is the defense bad? Like, with the defensive line, you don't have to have that question. You know LSU's defensive front is good. They're really good players. The offensive line is winning, which makes it encouraging for the offensive line. Now, the defensive backfield, that's a legit question. It's early, and they've got plenty of time to develop, but right now, the pass catchers are having a dramatic upper hand against LSU's defensive back. The fact that LSU's offensive line is winning against the defensive line, I think is very encouraging because you know that defensive line is good. A couple of other things. Watching today, guys like DJ Chester and Tyree Adams, a couple of freshman offensive linemen struggle today, reminded me of just how impressive it is that we saw Campbell and Jones do what they did starting last year. Those are big dudes that are going to be fine. DJ Chester's running at third-team center, and Tyree Adams running at tackle. And Tyree Adams had a rough day. And Brad Davis is probably LSU's most vocal coach on the field. I mean, Bob Diaco's giving him a run for his money now. But so when a player doesn't do well, everybody knows because Brad Davis is loud and vocal. And Tyree Adams had a tough go. I'm not picking on Tyree Adams at all. He's a freshman in like his 5th practice ever. So like I'm not picking on. He's going to be fine. But it just there's a learning curve. But it was a reminder. I was watching that today going, man, to think Jones and Campbell did what they did a year ago was just so impressive. And Bo Bordelon, I think I mentioned this earlier, but Bo Bordelon early, I think, has shown the most improvement. He has worked at both right guard and at left. Today he was working at the number 2 left tackle behind Will Campbell, and he had a Bo Bordelon pancakes Quincy Wiggins today. And Quincy Wiggins is a big, physical, imposing, incredibly looking guy, and Bordelon kind of handled him today. So just a couple of those observations. I think Deshaun Womack, we're excited about Womack. He's wearing 17. When they were running combo drills against the offensive line today, Womack kind of got thrown around a little bit by actually Lance Hurd, who had quite a go. And then he also took a rep against Emory Jones and Miles Frazier. And he kind of got pushed about 7 yards off the ball. But it's an illustration of how hard it is to play in the trenches. Now, maybe Womack's role on this team is going to end up being as a pass rusher here as a freshman. But as far as a guy trying to play that big end Savion Jones role, Savion Jones had an awesome win today against Emory Jones and Miles Frazier. Split him and had an awesome rep. But we always kind of keep an eye on the freshmen to see how they're doing. And some of those guys, I think, have a ways to go before they're really ready to make a big-time impact. So a couple of the takeaways so far in fall camp. And the last one, I think, is running back not really having any, I don't want to say any rhyme or reason, but nobody has solidified themselves. We saw day one, the first drills they were running. Like the very first thing we got to see the first day of practice, when the running backs were rotating, we saw Armani Goodwin and Josh Williams kind of taking the first reps. And then it was Trey Bradford and Logan Diggs. And then it was Noah Cain and Trey Holly. Then when they went outside, when the quarterbacks and running backs were working together, it was Noah Cain taking the first reps. And then when we got to go watch the first team offense, against the first defense, it was Josh Williams taking the first rep. Well, today it was Logan Diggs taking the first rep. So, I think they're sort of freely rotating everybody at running back, giving everybody first team reps to see who ultimately is going to fit in what role and who's going to merge. But as of right now, I don't know that there's really anything that's been decided at running back, and that's something I would fully expect is going to continue to evolve throughout fall camp. People want to know that position and how those reps are going to go, and I understand why there's curiosity there, but it doesn't seem like they are really close at all to determining how those reps are going to be given. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.